People in. There we go. There we go. Oh, unfortunately, I just Eric Barnes, I just saw your message and I appreciate that, but I think we'll be all right for now. I'm gonna go through and quickly just make sure everybody's muted so you don't get accidentally broadcast out there. We didn't mean to. Let me pull up my notes, look at our quick agenda items that I had thrown in here, and we'll just run through some quick agenda items, which I'm gonna make a note on here for one. All right. And I need, apologize, give me a moment while I'm getting my split view screen. There we go. Better. Okay. So it is, what is today? Anybody know? We lost track. September the 9th, 2024. It's 7:08 p.m. is going to be when we'll call our start time here. We had a few moments where we just took care of business as far as like procedurally how we want things to work with AMG and getting some documentation, like if we need things like that. So nothing major. So we got that out of the way, and now tonight we have with us. I'm here, Rob Smith, and then we have Justin Casey, our treasurer, Heather Fitch, member at you're still member at large, right? Member at large, and Shanda Schwartz, which is vice president. And I think the first thing I want to get out of the way is talking about the trash real fast, guys. So a couple things we've done with the trash. Missed pickups popped up if you're on Facebook, which most of the people here are on the Facebook group. Missed pickups came up. As trash is always an issue every single year. So Justin threw in some historical knowledge, which I want to acknowledge here, or some historical knowledge, which I would like to acknowledge. Apparently, David Ibsen, sorry, when he was the president, was hounding on the trash company quite a bit. And Justin reported that the May invoice, from what he could see, was 371 versus our standard of 742. So they gave us half off for May to try to make up for some of the issues. So I pointed out the other day it was a good job on David's part back then. So Justin came right out this morning, took photographs, got a hold of the company, verified three times a week pickup, I believe. Was what Justin was saying. Is that what you said, Justin? 3 times a week?
That's what they told me. Yeah.
Okay. So he verified with that. They gave I would call it an excuse, but they said we're in management changeover and there's a lot going on, which we've seen that with our trash companies in the past. It's a constantly merging, taking over, changing world. So that was an issue they were having. They said that's why they had some pickup issues. They got out there this morning, and we know it needs to be cleaned up again. Thank you to Matt, who's actually on the call right now, for going out there and doing what you did, getting things cleaned up. Uh, Moving forward from that, you may have noticed if you've been over there, or you may have seen the posts. Shanda went over and put her Bob the Builder skills to work and put up one of the new signs. Unfortunately, we we ordered 2 signs for the 2 signs that were over there that are right by the dumpsters. The 2 signs we're going to basically say, hey, if it's not yours, don't use it, and even included some details. A good suggestion. I think it was Matt that suggested it again. A good suggestion was to put up something on there telling people where they could take large items. So we got all that put together. Chanda ordered them, and then somebody promptly ran over one of those signs over there. So now we've got to get that sign repaired or back in the ground or whatever. And in the meantime, though, we do have the one sign up. So there's a sign up over there. We're still going to get a flyer out, and we were going to discuss some cameras. So I don't think we're really where we want to be with discussing cameras tonight. So I'm just going to table the camera discussion. Unless somebody wants to like get rolling with the camera discussion. Anybody really ready and want to go on that? And moving on. So da, 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 da. Pool. The next thing will be the covering the pool. The biggest question about the pool right now is when does the pool close? I was trying to find our information that we care about that. I don't see anything for 2024's pool dates. I know we've got our contract someplace in here, but I don't want to throw out a date from the contract, not being sure that that's rolled over. So I've got a question into Anne, who handles that, to get it back to us with, hey, what's our pool closure date for this year? So I'll just make a note that we're waiting for that, and then we'll put that information on the website, and I'm sure somebody will push it out onto social media. So we'll get that as soon as we can. Sorry, that wasn't something that was posted at the beginning of the season. Let me just make a note to request to Ann, post to pool or to website. Then let's see. Justin, you had mentioned to me a couple things related to covered and uncovered town hall maintenance, AMG billings, net income. I kind of want to push that off for a second here, and I want to hit one of our major issues, which is the lack of a board member that we have. So we need to fill that board member vacancy, just because it makes it a little bit easier for us to get work done. Plus, it's one more brain that we could use. And we actually are in kind of a good spot right now because we have two people who are willing to serve on the board, and we've admittedly been doing a little bit of headhunting as a board. We've been looking for individuals who have different skills that they can bring to the neighborhood. So we've got two individuals that we were, I guess, for lack of a better term, they're not in competition with each other because they both were like, sure, if you need me, I'm willing to serve, but more of just an introduction to the neighborhood. One of them you've seen before, and you know the other one's a little more quiet and shy and stays off to the side. She's smart and knows what she's talking about. We're gonna make her step to the front a little bit here. So if we could, I think we'll make it easy since Matt has been out in front before. Hey Matt, would you just quickly introduce yourself? I know you sent over like a little breakout to the board before. Would you quickly introduce yourself and just let people know really who you are? Put a face to the name if you don't mind. Yeah, love it. Perfect. And go ahead. It's all you. Give you a couple
I'm
minutes, just kind of talk.
Matt Birmingham. Moved to the neighborhood in February of 2021. Pretty much immediately just kind of started butting heads with the board and then joined the board in December of 2021 as a volunteer until July of 2022. I'm a civil engineer by trade, so some of what major problems in the neighborhood we have with drainage is what I do. It's kind of my bread and butter. So trench drains, when they get brought up, I know all about that stuff. Gotten pretty familiar with the CCRs and bylaws. I'm just eager to kind of continue helping the community. I know I'm pretty outspoken when it comes to townhome issues, especially dumpsters. I know there's not like a month that goes by that I don't post about the dumpsters, and I like to try to help that out as much as possible.
Sorry, I muted for a second there. I was unmuting. But I can tell you, Matt has always been one of the guys that jumps in. The reason I say we're in a good spot is because no matter what, we get the benefit of both these folks tonight, because they're both willing to help us out. So the second person will kind of drag kicking and screaming to the front of the room where everybody can see her is Robin. Robin, if you want to quickly introduce yourself, if you don't mind, and just tell everybody a little bit, kind of like what Matt was doing, a little bit about what you bring to the neighborhood and why we sought you out. You got to unmute. I muted you before.
Here we go. Okay. I'm Robin. I've been in the neighborhood about 10.5 years. And Rob is correct. I'm pretty quiet. I just like to live peacefully with people, but I'm here because I was asked by two people on the board, Rob and Chanda, that I respect, if I would consider being on the HOA. And so here I am. And really, I'm very observant and I'm very opinionated, but I'm only opinionated when asked. If you ask my opinion, you have to be ready to hear what I have to say. I'm very practical and methodical and analytical. My background is legal, accounting, tax, and currently corporate risk. So it would be probably more of that acumen that I would apply to any of the concerns that the neighborhood has. I'm very much I'll say a conciliatory person. It would be great for this neighborhood to be bluntly more unified and to see things from the perspective of the townhomes and the single family homes. Because at the end of the day, it's a community. When I drive through and I often see the kids running around, I am one of the ones who will absolutely stop to make sure the kids are okay. And I'm old school. I'm the old school 80s kid where we ran around. And if you got in trouble, the whole neighborhood knew, and you might have gotten a couple of pops before you got home. And so, of course, that's not going to happen here. But my point being a sentiment that we all live here and we should all equally care about each other and help understand each other and do what's best for the community. So here I am. I'm in front, Rob. You made me speak, so here I am.
I appreciate it. All right, so here's what I want to ask the board to do. Can you guys just quickly text me which direction you would go to vote? I'm going to give the same kind of anonymity that we give to everybody when they walk into the board meetings and vote. Not everybody has to stand up and put themselves on Front Street as like, I voted for this person, I voted for that person. Unless there's a question that any of the board members has to clarify anything. But otherwise, I think we can just do it that way. That way we can kind of, and then I'll just let them know, here's who we need on the board right now. And I want to be, sorry, and thank you, Chrissy, for messaging me. The board votes in replacement board members, so that's why this process is the way it is. And yeah, we'll just try to put it together real quickly here. Let me see. I have one vote. I'm looking to see if anybody else. I only see a vote so far from Heather. Nope, unless it's on my other phone. I see it on my other phone. Yep. Okay. All right. So Robin, the board would like to invite you to join us on the board, officially taking that board member spot. Matt, that doesn't get you off the hook. We
No, I
have
figured.
something. Yeah, we want to circle back to you and I think honestly, it's worth mentioning on the front end. We want to do something like we did. I think originally it's how you got involved was kind of heading up a committee, and we really kind of want to kind of focus back on that. We're not going to get too deep in the weeds with it tonight, but definitely want to circle back on you because you are right there in the townhomes and you do have some knowledge. And we'd like to kind of like make that more official so we can get your regular opinion and everything. Not like we did to you before. That's how we pulled you in.
Sounds good.
Okay. And let's see, where are we here? Okay. So now we've got that business out of the way. Let's see. Where do you guys want to start with any kind of budget conversation? And I want to point out, there's been a back and forth and everything on the budget. And for anybody who's been watching these meetings, we are trying to kind of just move on from what felt like, oh, it's a lot of pushing and fighting back and forth. It's not what we were going for, but it turns into that. So what we want to do is kind of get all of the questions answered out because frankly, at this point, we're all kind of sitting here with our hands up like this. Justin's trying diligently to provide us with all the information he can. And then people have seen, Eric, who was on the board not last year, the year before, and who served for years. Eric has been vocal about things he doesn't feel are being calculated right. And we're getting this middle ground. So Eric has agreed to jump on tonight and that way we can kind of like put the questions out there and just say, hey, here is a question, or why is this like this, or did you see this? And then hopefully kind of get some of that resolved. So where do we need to start to kind of get that done in a way that kind of rolls out quickly and cordially? And Eric, if you want to jump in with a thought on like, I think the easiest thing to do is address this, that would be helpful. And then we can just put it.
Probably the easiest place to start, just because we can knock it out quickly, is the reserve calculation. And that's just something that the statements need to get pulled from before everything got commingled, so that the interest rates and everything are correct, and then it can get split correctly. So on the video, it was decided based on a percentage, based on what was in the reserve study, but not the actuals. And it looked like you might have been having trouble trying to figure out where the numbers came from. But we had 6 accounts that were all labeled either common reserve or townhome reserve. So if we just go back to that starting point, it should be pretty easy to calculate where the money went from there when the CDs closed and everything started getting mixed together. But I don't think that's something that can be done tonight. I think it's just going to affect what was presented at the end of the video.
Okay, so Justin, I had sent you a text earlier talking about some of this. Does that land in a place where you're like, okay, I see what we're talking about, or is that a what the heck are we talking about?
No, I understand.
Okay, I do not, so I'm glad that you do. So that's what. Okay, so from there, I mean, are we kind of at a sticking point? In your mind, Eric, from that point until we get those sorted out, so we can kind of run from there, and that's something we need to try to circle back on with an October meeting when the board comes together.
That won't really impact just closing out final numbers for 2023, but it will impact the reserve split between common and single family moving into next year. So in terms of the present video where everybody's trying to close out 2023, it's not as big of a deal. It's just something that has to get done as soon as possible, just so you can that'll help everyone with their decision making for 2025. Really the only other thing was I think it was, let me find the number. I got stuff all over the place. So the 54,668.63. So I don't know, just a general preference. Everybody needs to watch Justin's video, because it'll explain everything, and you're not going to understand this conversation at all if you're like, hey, I'm going to watch the board meeting and understand what's going on. You're not going to understand without watching Justin's video. So there's so much information in there, and he does such a good job breaking it down that you have to watch the video to understand any question I'm going to ask. But there's that 56,000 number that was basically the excess of what came in from income that didn't get paid out and expenses. And the board, and that was calculated in there, and you showed that it was the board had budgeted 40,800 that was already put in the townhome reserves. It looked like when you did your split at the end of the video, it came out to, let me find the number. It looked like it was 15,000 of that amount was attributed to common, and 40,666 was attributed to townhomes. Is that correct? Am I saying the right numbers, or am I not even on the right numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just trying to figure out how the amount that wasn't assessments got split. So it's only like because there's the assessment amount, then the other interest rates that went into that. So I was just trying to figure out how that got split out, just so I could understand, because they asked me if it made sense, and I was like, I just need to know how that got split.
What do you mean?
So
We added it back to right, starting from the 14,000 at the 14,864 of revenue over expense, which is just cash inflow minus cash outflow. the checking account transfer, which was coded to 8,001 or 80,001, depending on how you want to read the account number, is 80001 is the account number. You know, you can pronounce that 80,001 or 8,001. But the transfer got coded to that account, and so adding it back into the 14,000 allows us to tie back the change in cash between the beginning statement 2023 and the ending statement 2023 to try to understand cash change. In terms of tracking the amounts in the savings account back to the paper exercise of calculating net income, I think that that's probably a difference in methodology. The calculation of net income, as I've tried my best to explain, doesn't track against investments as they are transferred, because the investments span multiple years, and I'm tracing from 1/1/2023, 12/31/2023. So anything that was as of, invested in that crossover year is not necessarily something that I pinned. How is that amount that was already sent to savings split up? It wasn't retransferred to the checking account. Certainly, it was just added back in that paper exercise of net income. Great question.
Okay, so essentially it seems like, so I'm trying to figure out how, so those amounts really didn't get split townhome single family. It's just, here's the pot of money. Did that just get split on the, divided by the 295 then? Any of the interest? Is that how it was split? Because in terms of expenses over operating, without the interest, it wasn't 14,000. It was closer to a couple thousand. If we were just doing the budget compared to what the actual payments are line item by line item.
You want to share your screen, Aaron?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Do I have a share screen option? I don't even know. Let me pull this up. Close out that one. Should be that one, should work. Just close it out. So is that tab pulled up now? Is that getting shared? Can you guys see the 2023 spreadsheet? I'm on one monitor, so I don't even know what's showing and what's not. It's not going.
Can't
Okay.
see it.
Let me
Rob may need to grant you access to screen share.
share. Okay, is that going now? It said share. Okay, so I just put everything in the line items that we had before, and without taking into account the, what is it, the late fee payments and reimbursements to AMG. The only difference between the adjusted amount and the budget was only $1,100 based on what the budget was for 2023 and what the actual expenses were. When we factored in, not including, I think it was like 2,000. I'll have to find out where it is. When we factored in the late fees, it was just an extra 1,000. So I think it was like 2,000 under budget is where we came in. And then the income above budget, which is what you were using, was 14. So I was just trying to make sure I understood where that extra 12,000 was coming from, if that was all. Because it was a mix between assessment payments that weren't current for the year. So if someone owed a bunch of money for like 2 years ago and they paid this year, that would get calculated in there. If the late fee income was also included, and any miscellaneous charges, and then the interest. So I was just trying to figure out how that other 12,000 got calculated. And if it just got split by straight down 295, townhomes get 64 and single family get 231, or if anything was done on those when you were doing the final calculation.
No, so the extra, yeah, I mean, I appreciate the extra work that you've done here, as a um member of the community doing putting the numbers into a budget spreadsheet, hanging on even as a member versus non-board member, and feeling the obligation to the community. It's admirable, certainly. As far as where does the extra 12,000, so the way I use that number, that 14,864, which is at the bottom of the 12/31/2023 AMG spreadsheet, is taking that 14.8, adding the 40.8 reserve contribution, which is not a change in cash level. It's just a transfer from the checking account to the savings account. Adding the two of them and using that as the total cash change to pin back to the audits from end of year 2022, which is also beginning of year 2023, and end of year 2023, and reconciling the difference. And that becomes my check figure. So that 55, 668 becomes, or 55, 669 becomes my check figure, that I can tie to the audited statements within less than $1 of difference. And then I can calculate net income from there.
Okay, I guess I'm just trying to so there's no real breakdown in that 14,000. That's just, hey, that's the income we have. We stick it with what went to reserves, and then you use that number at the end and you split up for how it needed to get divided at the end of the year. Am I following correctly? Here, I'll stop share so I can try to find the one that had. Essentially, I'm just trying to go off the video. So at the end of the video, it might be easier if you pulled up your spreadsheet that you used to split up that 56,000 when you were looking at how you needed to add it to reserves. Because I would just show everybody like, hey, this is how this amount got divided into how you just said it should be single family and townhomes, or actually, I guess it was common, and then townhomes, what goes in each of those two reserve accounts. That's the one thing I just didn't understand out of the end of the presentation was how, and you went through and you said you split it based on the reserve number. I was trying to understand why it didn't get split based off of, I guess, who paid the money in, or what interest got paid in based on what account, or if there was a better way to figure out that split. Yeah, that one there that had the 36.5 for townhomes and then 19 for common.
Absolutely. You want me to walk through this?
Because that came from, that's from that same number, right? From that 56 number that we're using, or is
Yes.
that?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So that ties out. So, how are the 19 and the 36 calculated? So basically, the important thing is that if a single family homeowner contributes $1 to the general fund reserve, the town homeowner needs to match that. So the town homeowners match the single family homeowner contribution to the general fund. And so, at the end of, we didn't talk about any of the way that, the actual line items are split with the methodology. We certainly could, but just, kind of going on the assumption that it was 15,000 net income for a single family homeowner, dividing that by 231 homes gets you a $64.94 contribution per single family homeowner to the general fund. So that needs to be matched by the town homeowner coming out of the town homeowner's net income. So multiplying back out that 64 by the number of town homeowners, which is ironically 64 homes multiplied by $64.94, gets you a 4,100, right, $56 reduction to what the town homeowner net income is. And then you add the town homeowner's contribution to the general fund, which was equal to 60, call it $65 per homeowner. And you add the single family homeowner's contribution to the general fund, which is equal to, again, $65 per homeowner. They match each other. So at the end of it, every 295 homeowners in the community paid in $65 into the general fund at the end of the year. And the balance of the townhome net income minus the town homeowner match to the general fund is equal to the contribution to the townhome fund. And I want to clarify, when I say contribution, I mean net income calculation. I don't mean a transfer from a checking account to a savings account, or even a particular investment that could be traced. It's not, we're not going to see a fund transfer of $36,000 anywhere in our bank statement.
Yeah, so those two numbers, just for everybody, just to make sure I understand what everybody else does, that is the excess money that was just sitting in the operating account because it didn't get spent in 2023, right?
Yeah, operating account
Okay.
or savings account.
Right. So I guess my only question would be, so we're saying that basically based on this, 19,000 should go into the common fund and 36.5 should go into the townhome fund. But the contribution of the 40,800 was already made to the townhome fund. So what that would mean to me anyways, that in order to reconcile 2023, you would have to pull out $500 out of the townhome fund back into the common, and then do the contribution of the 19 to the common fund, correct?
I'm not really following that as far as what was already done, because there was nothing that was done that wasn't added back in previous.
Well, there's that $40,800 deposit into the reserve account for the townhomes that happened before the board switch, which was calculated into this number. That money is sitting in the reserve accounts right now. So out of that 40,800, I guess it's what it'd be like, it's only 3,000, 3,500, $4,000. So it's $4,000 that would need to get pulled out of the townhome specific one and moved to the common, so the other one could be added to it.
I enjoy the pace of the discussion, but I'm just not following.
Okay, so right now you're saying that based on the amount of money that got paid into the community, we had an overage of 55,600. And then out of that 55,600, 40,800 has already been put into the townhome reserve fund.
What
What
do you
you're
mean
saying is
already
based
has
on the
been put
numbers
into
for
the townhome reserve
2023.
fund? No,
What was that?
this spreadsheet here is not tracing against bank statement activity during 2023. It's a total cash tie out from.
Oh, I understand that. I'm just trying to make sure that I understand and the board understands what logistically has to happen now to make this tie out correct. So if you're saying that the tie out for end of year is 36,500 should have gone to the townhome reserve fund, and 40,800 has already been put in the townhome reserve fund, that means $4,300 too much was put in the townhome reserve fund earlier in 2023. So that would need to get pulled out, and then the 19,000 would need to get added to the common reserve fund.
We can do all that on paper. It doesn't trace against transfers. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, I understand it's not going to trace right now, but for closing out 2023, if we're saying those are the final amounts, then we just need to make sure that that 40,800 that's already been moved is accounted for and matches this. So money would have to get pulled out of the townhome reserves section, and then these amounts would be correct.
Why not
So
doing
I'm fine
that
with that. I just
here
didn't know
on
if the board
paper?
understood that, or you understood that, or if that made sense to anybody.
No, I promise there's nothing you're saying that I don't understand.
Okay.
But the pulling out of funds is not something that really makes sense, because it's all on paper. It's not like we need to do a $4,000 transfer from a townhome savings account into a common savings account and, trace that investment against the equity calculation.
No,
That makes
I
sense.
get that, but in terms of what's in the account and how it's tracked, everything back to where it got mixed together and commingled, that would all need to get the amounts that are in the $800,000 account right now need to be able to be tracked back to where they were commingled. And then these amounts for 2023 will close out the 2023 amounts because nothing's been added to it since the CDs were closed out. So that should be, I would imagine, a relatively straightforward thing to do, to get those numbers, pull it, and then show the neighborhood, hey, this is exactly the amount the townhome reserve has, and this is exactly the amount the single family plus townhomes, which is the common one, has, that's used for the common expenses. And then everyone would understand, like, okay, if the board still wants it all commingled into one account, that's fine, but we have to have the initial starting point that out of this 800,000, $350 was townhomes and $499,950 was single family, whatever the number is. We just need that starting number for everybody to know for future
Can I put
boards.
those numbers in here?
But those numbers aren't
You
correct.
want me to type in was it 300,050?
Well,
I like that
whatever,
number.
whatever you
Yeah,
want to say.
we can make. I'm just kidding, Eric. I understand what you're saying, and I think that we have a shared sentiment toward wanting to get this right. Now I have a question for you. What was the amounts provided to the reserve advisors, and why were they different than the invested amounts?
They were provided with the March and April financials, and they were also where that was when we were making the CD deposit. I think the first CD deposit was April. So anything incorrect with the numbers, I watched your video. I think they just miscalculated the starting number, because when I looked at it and I looked at your video, it didn't make sense either. So I think they did not get the starting number correct. But I don't know. I don't think they did that intentionally. I just think the lady that initially was assigned to us kind of sucked, and then her boss had to come in and try to fix stuff, and that might have been something that he missed when he was coming in and fixing her work, because it was, I don't know if anyone, I guess Rob would have been on the board then, where the one lady came out and I met her a couple times and she didn't even want to go in the woods and see the retaining wall, and she was just significantly worse than the first guy we had who had been promoted. So she got essentially taken off of it after the first report, and they had to redo it a couple times. And by the third time, I probably just missed it too, checking that when they were trying to fix everything. So they put together just in general on the reserve state, they put together a one pager that said, hey, this is the stuff that got changed from the previous one to this one. It had a breakdown. And I think they just somehow messed up the numbers when they're putting them in, but I don't know where that number came from. I don't know if that color helps at all.
Yeah, it does. And so, when we look at the reserve funding plan here, though, these numbers are pretty important, right? Because if we get this for 5 years, and once every 5 years, and we're giving reliance on, this is the starting point on which all of the contributions are going to be made. And we're saying that this 248 is high, right? It's actually closer to 200 or 210, whatever it is. Then this reserve study is inaccurate, right?
So I'm looking, give me 1 second, see if I can pull up, what was the most recent one? I think that might have been the March or April one. So it was either March or April, because it was before the CD matured. So it had to be either March or February of 2023. The common had 586,567, and the townhome had 210. 185.42. So that townhome funding starting is that including? And that should be, I'd have to go back and look to see if that includes that when the 40,800 transfer was made. You guys might be able to pull that up quicker when the transfer was put in. But I'm assuming that transfer, I honestly don't know if it was in before or after that date calculation. So I mean, if I can go back and try to find when the transfer is made. But it's going to be in the monthly statement, so we would know if it was before or after when they were looking at it. That 40,800 transfer, because that would impact that by $40,000. Because in March, when they were doing the reserve study, before that contribution, it would have been, pull it back up. Yeah, it would have been 210, 185, and then 586. So neither way those numbers are correct 100%. So that's why I'm saying that we would, obviously those are the numbers you're going on because that's what you're going with off the reserve thing. That's why I'm saying it's just not going to be correct because it's not pulled from the accounts correctly and then just having the interest added in when the CDs were closed out. So it's going to be off somewhat.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that the reserve contributions as calculated in the reserve study are not going off of the right starting points.
Correct. We just have to figure out what it is. I'm guessing it's probably going to be pretty close to those, but those, even just based on those the March numbers, it's not accurate because the common should have more. And then here I can, go pull up the.
Eric, while you're pulling that up, I've got a question as I'm sitting here, listening to, both of you talk about, what numbers are accurate for the reserve. And I guess my question goes to, it's a general, it's not specifically one or the other, and I'm still learning, so this might be a completely ridiculous question, but I think of when I'm doing my personal finances, I get my bank statement from my bank, and I can sit and reconcile and say, okay, here's my list of deposits. Yep. That went in. It equals this. I move it to my checking ledger. I look through all my expenses. Yes, all my things were paid. Yep, there isn't anything in there I don't recognize. Yes, the amounts are correct. And I balance my accounts out every month. Shouldn't we have something like that that has our investment accounts and our general account that shows all of our income and expenses, where every month we get to see and can look back at 12 months of statements for each one of the accounts to see where the balance was, what was added in, what was taken out. And it seems like there shouldn't be this question. It would be easy enough to just look and say, okay, this is the amount of money that we had. It doesn't seem too difficult, but it doesn't seem like that's something that either one of you are going off of it. So is that something that we don't have that AMG just holds on to, and we don't really know month to month how much money we exactly have other than what they tell us we have?
The income statement makes sense to me. I'm not sure I follow.
Well, the whole question is how much money did we have in the reserves, right, at this particular time and date of what matches up to the reserve study. So instead, we're pulling our reserve numbers off of the reserve study instead of pulling our numbers off of our bank balances, like our statements from the actual investment accounts. Why are we pulling numbers from the reserve account and instead of, because then you can obviously match it up and say, okay, year end 2023, our bank statements show, we had this much in each of these accounts.
Yeah, I agree that the reserve study was done in a, kind of mid-month. It wasn't as of year end. It was during an interim period. That's why I pinned it back to the beginning 2023 cash in the audit.
So if we knew that, or even when these numbers here came in for March that the reserve study is based on, we could go back and say, okay, do those numbers match up with March, or do they match up with April of 2023, or do they not match up with anything? Are they completely wrong? But we can make those corrections, and with formula, it'll just, update, all future years if we need it to, or at least we can manually figure, okay, this is what we have in, this is where we want to be at the end of the year, and you equal it out. So it seems like the whole question here is what number was on the reserve study, if that was correct or not. Let's just go to our bank statements and look to see what we had in March of 2023, if that's what we want, or April 2023, or year end 2023, or beginning of the year 2021. I don't know. We should have those bank statements though, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. The auditor looks at the bank statements. So that's why I pinned it back to the beginning of 2023 and the end of 2023.
Okay, the
And tied
auditor
out.
look at them, or do we get to look at them?
We also get to look at them.
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm trying to take all these extra people out so we can just look right at our statements and see for ourselves what they.
I would trust the auditor. The auditor is an external party, highest level of financial assurance. We pay almost $2,000 for it per year. They do the work for us to look at the bank statements and the investment statements. I understand you want to see them, and you certainly can. You can make those requests as a board member
Well,
directly to.
but there's no calculations or figures there, right? Because the bank statements, like if I get my bank statement from Bank of America and it says I have X amount of money in my account, I know the end of the month I've got X amount. I don't need to send that to my auditor to tell me to read my account statement to me to tell me that that's what I have. They're no more trusted than Bank of America would be if they're telling me the same information. So why would I have to trust an auditor as opposed to just looking at the bank statements? And I don't need to look to my auditor. I can tell right here on my statement, here's my total. I'm just trying to simplify this. I mean, the less people, auditors, AMG, third parties, all these people looking at and giving all these different ideas about how much money we have, just seems like it's.
Heather, this is Eric. The other issue that you run into, and I can pull it up real quick. AMG, when they make their monthly reports, they don't always track every account on the summary page correctly.
Correct. And
so I'm looking at right now, I'm looking at March. So if you calculate, if you're looking at the financial, here, I'll just do a screen share so you can see the numbers. Just to show you that AMG's summary page has been garbage since I was on the board. I'm assuming it probably still is garbage because they don't pay enough attention to it. It's a separate pool they have to do than just their normal.
And Eric, I would agree with that 100% because I've gone through 2024 and I'm looking at their consolidation report of their income and their expenses and what they're, and the numbers aren't tracking or jiving for me. And that's why I'm going back.
Okay, I've got let me share this one. I just put them on a spreadsheet real quick. So this just shows that you can't really and this is for everyone that's ever been on the board, you can't rely on that summary page from AMG. You have to actually go to the account statement. So for April, for 2023, it said that the common reserve had 537,000. The town home reserve had 210. But the month before, it's saying that the common reserve had 544,000. So it just lost $7,000 in April. So
and I agree
unless
that
we did a correction that I don't remember, I'd have to go back in and check all the other things. I'd have to see if we made a correction back based on previous contributions, but I'd have to go in and check and look.
So my tracking with that, Eric, would be I'd look at March, I'd pull the March statement to make sure that it verifies those numbers are what is on our bank statement are the same. That's what's with AMG. And then I'd go into April bank statement and look specifically at that and see if that matches with what AMG has. And if it does, then there's got to be, money funds coming in or out. I look to see what that is. I either know it or I don't know it. So I either put a check mark next to it or I question it and go back and say, why is this different? Otherwise, uh, how do we even know where our money's at or who's taking it in and out if the balances from AMG aren't matching up? And so I'm just not trusting AMG's numbers for the point that you just stated. I just want a way to be able to track it so that we can figure this out and it's not just ambiguous. And the best way I think to do that is to go to the bank statements, which if AMG included those each month, all of them consistently, you know, we should be able to go back and have a check and balance to what money it is that we have.
Yeah, and that's why I said initially the easiest starting point would just be go to the closing statements for those CDs because you know exactly how much money came out of that CD account back into one of those fund accounts. And then you can see where the lump sum of money got put in because Justin, it was two different groups that got put into the reserve, right? There's the initial, I think it was like 600, then there's another 200 or so when the second CD closed, right? There's just two times it went in to the new investment one.
Yes, there were
Yeah,
4 CDs.
Okay, so yeah, so that's really easy to check. You just look and see when the CD closed, what the total amount was for all 4 different accounts, and then when they all got put in, you'll know exactly how much got put in from the townhome reserve, exactly how much got put in from the common reserve. And that's probably easier than trying to go all the way back to April of 2023, but I can try to look back and see if there's something that we did, because I know that we used overages that were in reserves were used to offset expenses for 2023 budget. So we've been doing that for the prior 2 years. So if 2021 came in under budget, and let's say the townhomes were 20,000 under budget, they would get a $20,000 credit back to offset whatever expenses were due for that year. And same thing for common. If it was under 10,000, they would get a $10,000 credit. So I just need to see, because I don't remember off the top of my head what the numbers were for 2023 year, but I can guarantee it was in like that 2023 letter because I wouldn't have just been moving stuff around. So whenever we did, that would have been when we closed it out, probably in the March, April timeframe, the same time they were doing the reserve study, which also might be why the numbers ended up being a little bit lower, that we made those corrections to do the offsets for the budget to maintain dues levels instead of having to raise them for 2023.
Yeah, the way that the reserves were calculated in the past, based on the budgeted transfers, not using the net income of actual dollars. I see, maybe a credit in the future if they were under budget, but that's still crossing years. I think we'll get to the same place, but it's still something I think is easier to track through equity.
And it sounds like everyone's on the same page. If Heather, you want to go and try to pull those statements and see how close you can get to Justin's numbers, and then you guys will at least everyone will have a better understanding of where they should be, and they may be 100% accurate right now, or they may be off. But the only way to really know would be to pull those statements and look.
Yeah, I do want to say I don't have any hesitation to trust AMG's monthly numbers. I mean, they provide us bank reconciliations to their GL balance against the bank statements. We get an accurate picture of what our cash is each month. Cash disbursements listing. We review the cash disbursements listing, make sure those expenses are appropriate.
It's not trusting those numbers, Justin, so much as it's just having confidence of being able to look and see, okay, here's our bank. And maybe it's just me because I'm new and I like to be able to track something through, because even yourself, when we originally were talking, you had mentioned that so many of them are tagged wrong, whether it's townhouse or single family. And when I went back through 2024, there were several items in there that had been posted under the wrong line item or what have you. And so that's just more eyes that are on it to be able to look and reconcile the statement. Even myself, I'm reconciling my own bank statement. Many times the bank's always right. I'm going to sit and say, okay, where was my error in my addition, or what did I put as a credit that should have been a debit, or the other way around? And then I can go back and find my mistake, right? Because it happens. Everyone makes mistakes. And so that way you can sit and say, okay, this makes sense. When you have numbers that don't make sense, it's natural to question those. And many times there's a logical explanation or a formula. And I've mentioned this, several times. I just don't know what those are. When I can see those put together and understand where these numbers come from, but I don't want to get a number that's just given to me over and over that I accept as this is what we have. They never make mistakes. This has got to be correct, without sitting here at the end of the month and reconciling a report, because it's not just my money, it's the community's money. So I feel an obligation of stewardship to at least have the ability to sit here every month and reconcile and make sure that I agree with AMG's information. And I should. I'm not saying necessarily that there is anything wrong there. I'm saying I don't understand a lot of those figures, and sometimes things do need to be adjusted. You've even said that yourself. So I think waiting months to do that, it's hard to go back now to something that happened in January and want to make a line item change. You can, if it's kept up with monthly, we know where we're at the end of every month. And I just think that we don't end up in a situation like we're in right now, where none of us know. We're still 18 months back wondering what we had. So nothing against AMG, just I would want the numbers checked.
So
Yeah,
to
are we moving at a good pace, Rob, on the agenda?
Yeah, I
We turned the page from the budget discussion.
was actually going to jump in and say I want to just to facilitate the flow of the conversation. I massively appreciate the conversation you guys are having, because it is kind of resolving, little clouds that are floating around. If we can clean up and we get everybody where everybody goes, yeah, I feel good about that. I think that would, then people who aren't paying as much attention will be like, oh, you feel good about it? I feel good about it. And that kind of residual will go out across the community, and we will kind of bring that split will get closer and closer. So this is awesome. I would ask that maybe we plan another date where we get together and do, like, I think Justin referred to it as a workshop one time, which is a term I hadn't heard in a long time related to things, but that was a fantastic way of putting it. And if Eric is available, if we could like get together and kind of workshop this out a little bit more, maybe behind the scenes, so we can break open some of the deeper dive into some of the numbers that maybe talk more specifically about accounts, and then come back in and we can kind of like consolidate all that information, put it to everybody in like an executive session note where we say, here's what we got. That would be awesome. You had mentioned to me earlier, Justin, covered versus uncovered town hall maintenance. Were you talking about maybe just having a quick discussion about some of the things that are and are not covered over there? Or were you talking about a deeper dive into coming to a consensus, or what was your thought?
Yeah, sorry, I thought that was Heather's question. I was just kind of summarizing, trying to get it added to the agenda.
Might have been. Heather, was that something you had thrown out there, or you muted? You're muted.
Thank you.
I don't necessarily know that I had a question on it as much as we were just discussing, what items were, covered, what items were, and just being, consistent with that. And I think we were talking about questions that had surrounded that on different uncovered expenses that had been, paid out, and what
Okay.
the consensus on that was. So I don't think that was anything that we needed
Nothing that we needed to talk out. And so, yeah, and we'll just kind of go back and, as a board, we'll double check where we stand with that. And then we'll make sure. One of the things that we discussed earlier with AMG was just making sure that Ashley sends through maintenance requests so we can lay an eye on them and say, yeah, that's something that is covered. It's not, we got to remember that we're not Ashley's only community. And I'm sure there's times where she's like, I think that was covered, or she's referring to a note that was scribbled someplace where she kept track of it. So we'll keep it clean by just saying, hey, just send it to the board. So I think we're good on that. One thing I want to touch base on is website stuff. Shanna, I know we kind of pulled Eric into that. Is he at a place where he feels like we're kind of moving along with our plans for doing some changes on the website, or do we need to? Where are we with that? How's Eric feeling?
Let me grab him real quick and pull him on the camera and let him talk for a second.
Awesome. I know if I was Eric, I'd be super excited that I was suddenly told I need to come over and get on the camera and explain what's going on with it.
He is on his way in here. Hang tight for 1 second.
So for anybody who doesn't know Eric, Eric is one of the guys who originally helped us get the website set up and running back in the day, and that's why we pull him in. Plus, he's got cool hair, so you know. What's up, brother? How are we feeling on the website stuff? Do you need us to resolve some things on that or make a decision on anything?
You kind of just know, I need to know whether you want to move forward with the changes that I kind of outlined. There are a couple things like how you use the newsletter thing that aren't super clear to me. The things that I need clarification on are things that I just need to do the task, but they're not blockers from you deciding whether you want them done or not, if that makes sense. So like, understanding how WordPress itself is specifically installed will help me know how to upgrade it and make the changes, but it shouldn't affect whether you want to make a particular change or not.
So I guess
I think we had
yeah, go
I
ahead.
think we had all agreed that we want to do the security certificate for 1 year rather than the month to month.
Yeah, the security certificate, I think it's something you can get. I think it makes people feel good about the site, but I mean, if you're not inputting any sort of information or buying anything, or I don't think it's necessarily like required. It's not necessary. So I think it's something you can get that would just make people feel better that they see the little lock on the site. But for the way we use it, I don't think it's needed if you really don't want it. So there's some food for thought for that if you want to think about it that way. So that's something you don't have to spend. Yeah, the things that cost money, like other certificates, really what costs money. It's not money that you have to spend if you don't want.
So that's kind of the same thing I'd heard in the past. I think John Rodman had weighed in on that in the past, and it was the security certificate. Since we didn't do commerce on the website, and since our files are not stored directly like on that server or anything, there's nothing to really kind of hack
what that's
into.
really used for is anytime you make a request on a website, particularly when you're filling out a form or something, that information is sent over the wire, like to kind of simplify it, right? So without this certificate, somebody could like capture that information and see it. With the certificate, it encrypts that, right? But if you're not sending information back and forth, there's nothing to really encrypt or protect. So it doesn't matter. Now, if you did choose to do like the registration process, if that makes sense, where people register to be a user and things like that, and it was password protected, then I might say you might want to revisit that, because then you are asking people for like username and password and things like that. But if you choose to not do that feature, which I don't know where you all wound up on that, but I think there's no reason to have the SSL certificate if you're not going to have that feature. But I don't think it's not going to hurt to have it. It's just an expense that's it's not protecting anything, if that makes sense.
How much was the expense? What were we talking?
Less than $20 a year. I'd have to double check. It depends on who we buy it from, or I'd say somewhere around $15, $20.
I think that's $15 or $20 well spent to give people the feeling of security. Because I know when I go on and log on first time anyhow, or first couple times until my computer is used to that site, it'll pop up and say, from my antivirus software, this website is not protected. It could be dangerous to your computer. Are you sure you want to log on? And I'm like, yes. And so I think if it would save people from having to go through that stuff, is that correct?
Sure, totally valid. That makes perfect sense.
For the amount of $20 anyhow, I don't think that that's much.
I guess so
That's
the
how-
easiest way to handle that is there anybody on the board who's like, let's not spend the money on it, or is that something we just want to go ahead and say, yeah, let's just let him work on that? The way Eric can kind of have some marching orders. Is there anybody who's kind of against that?
No opposition here.
That's,
I'll try to
okay,
find
so-
the cheapest, good solution like possible. I'll try to spend the least amount of money.
Cool. And then one thing that comes up continuously, I know we talked about a couple different ways to do it. Seems like one of those, it would make people feel better if when you logged in the page, you saw, hey, welcome to Om and Glenn, we have our meetings here. And then if you wanted to click over and look at, I guess, where the videos are, where the financial stuff links are and everything, if there was we need a login from you. Is there a simple way to do that where, I mean, I don't know, is it the easiest way to manage that? Seems to me that you create one simple password that yearly could be sent out to people along with like their annual statement. This is, hey, the 2025 password for the website is, Joe $ coffee. And everybody knows it from there. And I get it that like, I mean, we could change that routinely. I get there's also like creating individual users, but then you got to authenticate them and all that, so is there a way to do something simple like that? Is that an option?
Sure, if you just wanted, go ahead, Kim.
I think part of that, just to jump in, is like, what problem are we really trying to solve with that? Because
I don't know personally.
yeah, if we don't really know what problem we're trying to solve with that, we're making people jump through hoops to get to some very basic information. That, I don't think it makes sense to make somebody log on just to see like when our meetings are and like what our bulletins are and the minutes to our HOA meetings.
I think
Yeah,
it's
so
the
I just-
concern about the fact that like we have our general ledgers posted there and things like that. That's probably like if somebody was to hop in, they'd be like, well, can we put the general ledgers behind you got to enter in at least this number or something like that to get in. Which again, I mean, I've heard the arguments. Not that I don't believe in the arguments. I just don't think that there's just not enough concern in my mind. But I'm not against it either.
I think at the end of the day, it's
I think
possible,
we
right?
get the sorry, Eric, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think if we get the security certificate, the GL detail is just an internally generated document. It doesn't have account numbers on it or anything of that nature. It's not necessarily sensitive information that we have, the fiduciary duty of confidentiality to try to protect. So
Okay.
that's probably fine.
Well, it's straight from the treasurer's mouth, so that should make some people feel a little more comfortable about that. So I think, I mean, am I hearing that there's not as big a push towards like website passwords and logins and all that as much as there is just getting like that HTTPS on there? I'm gonna take that as a yes. Okay, cool. That should be a little simpler, right, Eric?
Yeah.
Update the PHP or whatever, and is that something else you still had to fix? I know you kind of explained some of how that worked.
Yeah, so I think it's just good to do that in general for security reasons, but I don't think like something's gonna stop working. So I think if you're gonna put this certificate on it, might as well just kind of do that update. So that's one of the things where totally possible to do. I will need to like learn a little bit more about how it's all set up in order to be able to do that without breaking things. There might be a little downtime or something associated with that, but I can communicate that and say, hey, if it's not a big deal for the next, 24
Well, if
hours,
it,
you might have some downtime on the website.
if you get to a point where you're like, hey, John could help out. I know John Rodman, he's still here. He pops in. So if you're like, put me in, I don't know if you still have John's number. I've got John's number if you want me to connect you guys, because he knows the same. He's like listening to you. You guys start talking about computer stuff, and I'm like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's play a video game.
I've
Which you also
been
have.
teaching all day. I've been teaching all day, so my brain's going 900 miles an hour. So.
Yeah, you got all the teaching brain stuff and everything. Which, tell me real quickly, just for a side note, what's the computer thing you've been doing? You've been making games or something, right? Like refurbishing old games.
Like refurbishing old video game consoles, stuff like that. But Yeah, it's been fun. I like doing that. Bringing things back from the dead doesn't work. Make it work. Save some
Random
money
plug.
buying broken stuff.
Okay. So password's not a big deal. So I'm gonna make it no for now. And HTTPS, getting a security certificate in place. That is our big thing for now. So that's a go. Getting the website PHP updated, which doesn't matter if people know what that is or not. It's just an update he's going to do in the background. That's our main issues with the website. The pool needs to be figured out as far as when it's closing. I'm just kind of running through what I need to know about, and then we're kind of at a stopping point on the budget, if that's okay for now. Is everybody okay with that for now? And we just kind of circle back, and then we'll have to probably get together for a kind of a special meeting in October if everybody's okay. So if we can dedicate to that, I'd say we could just kind of open the floor up to some questions and call it a night. Unless anybody's got anything pressing they need to throw out that I forgot to put on the agenda.
Yeah, so there are two things that, I'm really wanting to get done prior to the vote on dues in November of 2023. So I really want to turn the page on 2023 and get 2023 net income agreed on. And then we'll add 2023 net income to the reserve calculations. So, there's no question, there's no doubt. We had $808,000 as at the beginning of 2023. We had $864,000 at the end of the 2023 cash. If you want to add accrued interest, that's $883,000. I covered that in the video, but that's all in the audited statements. So there's no question as to that. The question that we have is, okay, who does it belong to? So we need to make that determination, and that's what I'm most interested in and focused on. And then as far as dues, I've actually talked to owners in the townhomes, kind of what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they thought they might be, and what they would consider to really hurt, or so that's all just input, right, to the thought process. But as far as a range right now, it's hard to say with any accuracy, but I'd say north of $20 dues increase, to be very conservative on that. So definitely north of $20, south of $50. So don't split the baby on that.
I look forward to the number, the magic in the system that gets us to that. So I hope so. That'd be great. Okay, so do you need us to make a decision on something tonight, or is that just kind of the direction you want to go in the next week or so into here? As we
Well, if you guys want to vote on net income, 2023 net income's not going to change. The 55,669 is the number. Then it's just a matter of, we don't need to book equity yet, but we could lump it all in. Might as well. It doesn't really matter to me, since there's going to be more work we have to do on it. I'd rather just give AMG one journal entry. We can wait. I don't mind.
What do you guys think? Does anybody want to move forward with just going ahead and voting on that? Are we in a position? Is there any pushback on that? I see where you're coming from about how the number itself isn't going to change. Just where and how it's divided is kind of the issue at hand, right?
Yeah, you can take some more time with it.
So we can, all right. I guess Shanda, Heather, and even Robin, you're out there too. So do you want to wrap your head a little more around this before we try to make a decision about a specific thing related to the budget and closing out that number, or are we just kind of like, well, that is what it is. It's not going to change. It is what it is for 2023, and then we'll figure out how it's divided as we move forward in the next couple weeks.
So, this is Robin. So is the agreement from understanding, Justin, the agreement from the beginning and end number, you need that to start your work for 2024 and for what you need to know or to understand the split. It's the split of that. There's nothing additional that could come in to change the beginning and end. Right? Oh, I'm on mute.
No, you're there. I
No.
heard
Oh,
you,
oh,
Robin.
I'm not on
Yeah.
mute. Oh, okay, sorry.
I think he was processing.
Yeah, yeah. AMG's right information that they provide us is a kind of internally generated document. So you want to pin that change that occurred in activity for 2024 to a reliable external source, beginning and ending number. If we didn't get the audits, I'd call those the bank statements and the investment statements. But since we do get the audits, I'd call those the audits. And looking at the audits is a extremely reliable source of beginning and ending cash that we can pin that to. As a matter of fact, if we ever wanted a loan as a community, which that's the something I hope we never need, right? As a community, there's tons of banks that would love to give us community financing lines of credit. We would submit to them audits. So that's how reliable, right, our externally generated, external audits are. And so we need to pin the beginning and ending balance to some external document that's reliable. And so I choose the audits because we have them. But for 2024, we might not get the audit back until late February, early March. So I might create something, pinning the 2024 ending balance to the bank statements and investment statements that we get, in order to rely on the 2024 activity as provided by AMG. If that makes sense.
Yes,
Is that your
that
question,
makes
Robin?
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I don't I think we can trust the audited statements. I don't think we need to delay that. If y'all agree, you've been closer to it than I have.
Yeah, that's a great question, Robin. Do you have any other questions? You're the newest board member to the 24 to 25 board, so welcome. And
Thank
I
you.
hope you stay on. And do you have any other questions? This is a lot. I don't know how many of the YouTube videos you watched. If any, they're quite interesting. They'll put you to sleep. Another way.
I think ours have been enough to wake people up.
No, I don't have any other questions. I mean, Rob, you're asking if we can vote on the beginning and ending numbers for 2023.
Yeah, I think that if it would put Justin in a good spot, and I get what he's saying about, hey, how the money splits might be a bigger question, but we had this number of dollars and we ended with this number of dollars. Is everybody cool with just agreeing to that? And then we move forward, I think I jotted them down right, Justin. It's 808, 808,000 at the beginning, 864,000 at the end. If you want to add in the interest, it was 883. Did I hit it? So that would be our beginning and ending for 2023, correct? If I jotted all that down.
Well, yeah. That's something it is. Yeah, that's something to take a vote on though. That's
just an agreement?
Our cash. Yeah,
So
yeah. That's just our cash. That's just on our.
That's why I was wondering. I was like, that's the numbers. So there's nothing to vote on, right?
If you want to, yeah, no. What we were talking about is so that's the right. So the 864 minus the 808 gets us our net income, and then a matter of how we divide that net income among a town homeowner and a single family homeowner. That's what the video is about, and that's what we could vote on. But since we're going to take a vote at some point in October. Give everybody some more time to watch the video, give me some time to go back, get some more statements, since apparently the 2023 reserve study is an unreliable starting point. I'm kind of disappointed to hear that, honestly, that the 2023 reserve study is a not a reliable starting point. We pay some $4,000 almost for this professional services document, and it was the document that was going to stand, on its own 2 feet for the first the next 5 years, we have this document. This is the document that we keep on referring back to. That there's an error in that document. Makes me disappointed. I thought it was so we'll go back just like we did in the August 19th meeting.
The good side of it though is hearing us come to a point where you guys were able to say, hey, I think this is an unreliable number, and that hearing that from, let's just call it what it is, hearing that from two different sides of the neighborhood is good because it brings you guys closer together. It's just one big group that's like, hey, we all agree on this, and that's what we need as a community. Just coming, everybody going, yeah, I agree with this, and then make the little things. And then I think that might come to a bigger issue if maybe what happened is we set up with reserve advisors and we started following them through, and maybe we need to pull the plug on reserve advisors and look at a different company for our next reserve study and make somebody kind of reset. I don't know. Maybe that's something we need to talk about. Vendors are like that. I don't care what it is. You bring in a vendor and a couple of years of great, and then eventually you're like, this isn't as good anymore. So that's why cell phone companies operate off of that. And management companies.
Absolutely. So, just like we did on the August 19th, meeting, we came into it with, I put together something, we go back to a vendor, we get a different estimate. So we pull in some more documents, we get it tighter, we get it cleaner. So we'll do that between now and October. And, I think coming out of this, probably the best thing, is we have recorded evidence of Eric and I working together.
A million, yeah.
There's no reason why two gentlemen can't come to an agreement. I appreciate you moderating, Rob, and getting this set up. So, there's no reason why we can't move forward. We'll move forward.
I definitely think that's the biggest thing anybody can see out of it. It's legitimate. It's natural, and it's exactly what people want. Everybody's got the same plan. We all want our neighborhood to be as good as it can be and move forward. Our goal as a board is to make sure there's money to do the maintenance issues that have been deferred over the years. The best thing that came out of last year's board was pushing off some deferred maintenance. We just got to figure out how to keep that rolling and make sure that there's finances for all that. I know that's my one as a board member. So we've got a good place here. So if everybody's good with it, we'll just kind of table anything else we might have, see if there's anything that's kind of bouncing around with the community. And if there's not, we'll call it a night, and then we'll circle back in the coming weeks. So
I was just going to bring up one quick thing. Whenever I was leaving the neighborhood the other morning, the sprinklers were on, and over near like the townhome exit, there was at least 3 or 4 of them that were just spouting water out of the ground. They weren't actually sprinkling. They were just shooting water up. So obviously the sprinkler heads are broken on at least, I think I counted 3 or 4 of them that were doing it. And I just hadn't gotten around to sending in an email or reporting it in any other way. And I was able to jump on tonight, so I figured I'd just bring it up.
Well, thank you for jumping on. Justin, I know you were doing some stuff trying to get the sprinklers and addressing that. You want to mention it real quick, kind of where we are?
We signed a quote last month for about a repair, about $550-ish to Yellowstone to get repairs to the sprinklers. Was that the entrance coming out of Caprington or Almond Glen Lane?
It was the neighborhood entrance near the townhome side.
Okay.
So Caprington, I guess.
Caprington, yeah. I drive out of that entrance every day. I'll pay attention to it, and I'll also ask, what the status of the irrigation repairs are, and if those sprinklers were considered in that. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
There was a question in the chat.
Let's see.
Oh, that was mine.
it
I
company
was just
in the-
saying the company
Oh.
that we pay $4,000 to do this audit stuff, if they gave us an erroneous document, are they going to fix it?
You go back to them and you say, hey, we want you guys to fix it. And they would say, well, where's the issue? And then we go back and forth. And if you can't trust what they gave us in the first place, I don't know, unless the guys are like, yeah, I think we should go back to them and have them rewrite it. I mean, it's still the document is the document is, but I mean, I think at a certain point you just go, okay, let's figure it out without having to try to go back to them, because they're working off of estimates all the time anyways. So they're going to be like the weatherman. They're going to go, well, the dollars, the cents, the pennies, the money. I don't know unless you guys got something else on that. What's your thoughts on that, Justin?
To go back to the reserve advisors,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that any revision, it being probably a year and a half out, they wouldn't do it in good faith. I think they would bill us for it, and I don't, know that that's we want to continue paying money for something that wasn't done. So, I want to get a lot of other things done before the end of 2024, but going back to the reserve advisors is not necessarily one of them. I think that we can make a decision on what dues ought to be based on our planned 2025 spending and some of the history that we have, and the current information that we have. I'm not sure that going back to this is necessary. It's a good question. Thanks for bringing it up, Lauren.
I think you sound like you're knowledgeable about finances, so if you know what you're doing, I trust you.
No, I just convince people I am. Yeah.
See, there you go, Justin. You're building trust. See? So we were talking about like it really is sometimes it's about getting people to go, yeah, it sounds like they know what they're talking about, and then hopefully we do. But as that's why you got five again, that come in so that you can kind of get a different opinion from different people. And then we're always trying to look for like people in the community, like Justin, going out and talking with town homeowners, so that we can kind of get that feel of what's the rest of the community thinking. So, anything else from the community? Thoughts? Is anybody from social here? Do you guys have anything planned coming up? I know a lot of times you guys start trying to plan things for fall, that kind of stuff.
Hey, I'm
That's a
here.
social club.
Yeah, we'll do something for a fall festival or whatnot. We haven't really talked about it that much. I'll be doing pink bow stuff, and I'll post something about that soon. But other than that, that's for breast cancer awareness for October.
Figured I'd give you an opportunity to pop in with something if you guys had something in the works.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else from anybody else for the good of the order?
Are we doing the chili cook-off again?
Yeah, that's the fall festival.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, I missed that last year. I was very disappointed.
Yeah, Lauren enters her baked goods, and she's won too. So, Lauren, are you entering again this year?
If I'm available that week, I will put something in.
Awesome. We may have to check with you before we decide on a date.
Just don't do Saturday morning.
No, we never do morning. We try to do it in October, but we even lean towards November because it's hard to do a fall festival when it's still like 80 or 80 degrees outside, because sometimes in October it's still really warm.
Yeah, pick like a Saturday afternoon, evening, and I should be good.
Okay, thank you.
I had just a question to circle back real quick. It shouldn't be but a minute. The reserve study, was my understanding that what was off with that was just really the beginning numbers for our reserves, and it was just a question of whether when the reserve study was done versus when we had given them our current balances. So it's just a matter truly of changing that, or were there other things in the reserve study that we shouldn't feel confident in? Because that's an easy number just to change. And
Yeah, no, I think my understanding was just the starting point of the 248 for the townhome fund, was the basis on which all the other numbers built upon. Whether the fund suggestion was 41,000 or 42,000, it was all based on that starting point. So if we, wanted to recalculate that by changing that beginning number, I suppose we could.
because I think it was just adjusted by what their presumed expenses were. And then what we should have in the account, their ending balance, that shouldn't change. So we just have to really adjust or meet to wherever the current study is, say the end of 2024, and we'll be back on track with what the report shows. If that's possible, depending on how far off we are.
Yeah, that's fair as far as a catch up. I think that Reserve Advisors gives us the Excel spreadsheets, probably for that reason. And, I'd love to know how other boards take their information and use them. They give us the Excel spreadsheets, and so probably they expect us to play with them for, the period of 5 years in between when we hire them.
Oh, so
And
there's an Excel spreadsheet. So all we have to do is just change that beginning number to match whatever it was at that particular time and date. And the Excel spreadsheet should have all the formulas then where it'll recalculate everything on its own.
I
Correct?
haven't, I haven't spent too much time in the Excel spreadsheet. I just know that there is one. So,
Okay, well, that should be easy enough.
I hope so.
Cool. Okay. There's something. Let me just make sure there's nothing new in the chat. Nope. I think everything else is good in the chat. So if there's nothing else from the board. Any last call for any board member that needs to throw anything out? Robin, thank you so much. Matt had to go. He messaged us. We're reaching out to him again anyways. Matt's already been deeply rooted in helping us out. So it is 8:38 p.m. and I motion that we adjourn the meeting. So meeting is closed. Thank you everybody for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Bye.
Thank you all.